I want people to reflect, everyone who's talking about long hours, productive hours, to reflect this. I want to put all these people in one aircraft, right? And tell them, you know what? Your pilot is following your long hour principle. They've driven for 20 hours or they've flown for 20 hours now. This is their last leg of another 4 hours. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight. That the longer you work, the less productive you become. And there's no point in debating this. यहाँ पे ऐसे ही होता है, take it or leave it, we can't change this for you. Then that's a toxic environment that you should really get out. And I don't think anyone can pay you enough to go. In most cases, these are organizations making a promise to an external stakeholder saying, कर लेंगे, we will deliver it, don't worry, Monday morning you'll have it on your table. And this promise is being made on a Friday evening. First, they need the courage to recognize the issue and say, don't feel morally compelled and say, hey, there's recession. Will I get another job? Should I make a noise? It's March, it's performance time. Everything that I did the entire year will be forgotten. This one thing will stand out. Should I even make this conversation? Should I even be seen as a cribber or someone who's complaining? It's a demand supply issue. If the supply is more than demand, then people are going to feel that, I don't want to miss out. Even if I ask for a little bit of latitude, I'm going to be substituted, replaced. It's a no-brainer. You don't have to suffer toxicity. If somebody is feeling suffocated, if you're feeling choked, you show signs that you need air. It's as simple as that.
This is the mother of podcasts.
Before we introduce you to the guest and the topic of discussion, let me share why you should believe the word of our guest. He's my ex-employer, and you can believe me when I say that he practices what he's going to preach. He didn't just hire me as a 7-month pregnant woman for a critical role in his company. He also held the position open for several months while I welcomed my baby, healed, and returned. To some, this might sound very normal, but I and Chanda both belong to the media industry, and हम दोनों ने देखा है प्रेग्नेंट women और न्यू मदर्स के साथ डिस्क्रिमिनेशन होते हुए, सिर्फ वर्क बेस्ड डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं, इवन थ्रेट टू एम्प्लॉयमेंट होते हुए. तो it was the sheer comfort that Mr. Vasudevan provided me, gave me by his kind words, that this engagement is fixed, and things like you do what makes you feel comfortable. And he kept on checking up on me and my baby throughout the process. So I don't know if the world is changing to be a better place, but there is this leader who decided to rewrite the rules. And welcome to the podcast, Vasu sir.
Thanks, Soumya. Thank you. Thanks for your kind words. A little exaggerated, no?
No, it is not. Of course not. Chanda can come in and say and tell that it is not exaggerated.
I've been there. I left my job while I was 6 months pregnant because nobody was understanding what I was going through. So when when you hired her as a 7-month pregnant woman, that's really a big thing, I would say, because शादी होने के बाद सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन दैट एन एचआर आस्क्स यू इज अच्छा आपकी शादी हो गई, कितना टाइम हो गया है, because eventually it's back in their mind कि they'll leave the role or go on a maternity leave or whatever it is. So it is a big thing.
Yeah. So sir, तो आज जो हम लोग डिस्कस करने का हमारा प्लान है is quite rampant on the internet. The 90-hour work week, the 70-hour work week. 90 घंटे दफ्तर को दोगे और उसके बाद ट्रैवल करोगे दफ्तर में, तो परिवार को क्या टाइम दोगे? All right, that is what we want to start with. But there is like this interesting statistic that Deloitte has, where they found that 77% of Indian professionals experience burnout, with 42% citing unmanageable workloads as the primary cause. All right. So, India में क्या work-life balance myth है?
No, interesting. Can I respond to this question? by looking at it slightly differently, because I'm sure a lot of more experienced and skilled professionals have spoken about this and they've given their views, and this has taken a lot of time on prime time news
Debates. Yeah,
shows
yeah,
as well. So yeah, I think I'll try and look at it slightly differently, not very differently.
yeah.
See, first of all, this whole the characterization of the problem
Hmm.
is too broad and too generic.
Hmm.
And that in itself is a problem. Okay,
Okay.
because I'm sure whoever said that we have to give 90 hours, 70 hours, 42 hours, or whatever it is, there is a context and they said it from their frame of reference and what worked for them.
Hmm.
Right. So for me, one of the first things is let's look at it contextually. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people are looking at it very generically.
Hmm.
And the way they're positing the problem is it okay? It's not, is it not okay? See, to me, that's a no-brainer. We all understand there's a lot of science. Human beings tend to perform well when their, heart and soul is in something.
Hmm.
And the function of the heart and soul deteriorates within the day as
Hmm.
your fatigue increases. We all know this.
Hmm. Hmm.
There are human factors. That's why I'm calling it a no-brainer.
Hmm.
But then let's look at the reality around us. We're talking of corporate organizations, but before we get there,
Hmm.
let's look at some of the fundamental institutions of our society, right?
Hmm.
Take healthcare, for example. There are healthcare professionals who work 12 hours, 14 hours, 18 hour shifts,
Right.
right? No one makes a noise about it. It's a problem if a corporate employee is asked to work 18 hours. That's one perspective, right? But we don't check if any of our loved one is in a healthcare facility, we don't check how long has a doctor worked before they take the scalpel to do a procedure on our loved one.
All right.
We don't check how many hours the nurse or the technician or the support staff have clocked in. But the reality is there are many places where the minimum shift is 12 hours,
Yeah.
right? And they're never in the news. Okay. Uh, so I'm neither justifying, I'm not condoning this, I'm not opposing this.
Hmm.
I'm saying
Hmm.
let's try and break this problem down into two, three constituents. First of all, is it fair? Is it possible? I think everyone knows this,
Hmm.
that the longer you work, the less productive you become. And there's no point in debating this. We can debate it because it makes for great content.
Hmm.
It's sensationalism. It's great talking point for anyone with a little bit of common sense.
Hmm.
But I think beyond that, the reality is that you need to break it down. So why do then organizations do this?
Hmm.
The way I want to break it down is what is the cost and what is the effect. If we understand this, I think the relevant stakeholders will start getting a little more mindful. Who are the stakeholders here? The person who's asking another person to clock in unreasonable work hours,
Hmm.
and the person who's actually delivering this. What are the compulsions? Is he or she unable to push back, say yes or no? These are the elements of this problem,
Hmm.
right? So if we get into that, I think there are many organizations that have accepted this as a way of life and do this.
Hmm.
Let's forget the long working hours. Let's go back to another thing that we have come to accept as a way of life, but it was not a way of life until a few weeks back,
Hmm.
a few months, few decades back, rather. Sorry.
Okay.
The weekends.
Hmm.
We were not a 5 day week country,
Hmm.
right? We suddenly became a 5 day week country. I'm sure, at least in my lifetime, I've been in jobs where it was 6 day week. But today, what's happening? A lot of manufacturing organizations, a lot
Hmm.
of service providers, a lot of essential services.
Hmm.
These work 6 days, 7 days.
Hmm.
So there's only a segment of the
Hmm.
corporate
Yeah.
industry which is into 5 days. That's a big difference,
Hmm.
right? Then why do people willingly do that? Because these are accepted realities. So therefore,
Hmm.
the point I'm making is every organization, every establishment has a certain reality.
Hmm.
And if the stakeholders within that reality are very mindful and start having dialogue and discussions about is this absolutely necessary?
Hmm.
Is this really something that we can't help? Then those discussions will help address the problem. Otherwise, we'll constantly talk about it like the pollution of Delhi, traffic of Bangalore, water problems of Chennai, right? And
But
it's not going to get addressed.
sir,
Yeah.
but when you say that it is an accepted reality, there
Mhm.
it also counts for the kind of competition that we have in India. Is if I don't accept this reality, I might probably be jobless by the end of the month. If I come and say that I will not work so many hours a day, or I'll not respond to work calls on a weekend, if I say that, there are at least 1,000 people who are ready to do this job if I leave today, right? So the
Right.
competition also comes into place here, right? It's not
Mm-hmm,
just an
mm-hmm.
accepted reality, it's also a forced accepted reality.
Well said, and that I would like to distinguish. See, that's the quality of conversation we should have, is what I'm saying. I'm
Hmm.
saying knowing that something is going to be like this and making a noise about it is not going to solve the problem for anyone.
Hmm.
But if there is a headroom
Hmm.
and if there's headspace to make these subtle adjustments just so that you get your work frame right,
Hmm.
right, then that's a conversation worth having.
Hmm.
Okay, and let me give you some examples. You're absolutely right. It's a demand supply issue.
Hmm.
If the supply is more than demand, then people are going to feel that, I don't want to miss out. Even if I ask for a little bit of latitude, I'm going to be substituted, replaced. I'm saying these are the things that organizations should be mindful about. And it's not as easy as that also. People think that, hey, look, if I say no once, tomorrow someone else will be doing what I am doing. That's not the case.
Hmm.
Some of these roles, that's why the conversation should be about value, productivity, and efficiency.
Hmm.
It's not about time so much,
Hmm.
right? The more valuable you become, the more irreplaceable you become. And that's something everyone knows,
Hmm.
right? So, to me, the essential conversation is about, do people really need to put in so many hours
Hmm.
when we have evidence pointing to the fact that
Hmm.
productivity is going to decline the longer someone works,
Hmm.
right? And then who needs to be mindful about this?
Hmm.
Let's break it down. This is the effect? What is the cost? The cost is somebody is being unrealistic. Why are they being unrealistic?
Hmm.
Maybe someone somewhere is making a promise to a stakeholder. In
Hmm.
most cases, these are organizations making a promise to an external stakeholder
Hmm.
saying, Kar lenge, we will deliver it. Don't worry. Monday morning, you'll have it on your table.
Hmm.
And this promise is being made on a Friday evening.
Hmm.
Why? Because maybe that person has the same insecurity like this employee has.
Hmm.
That person believes, if I don't make this promise to you, I'll be substituted.
Hmm.
It's such a competitive environment. If I don't put my hand up for this and say, I'll get it done for you,
Hmm.
someone else is going to put up their hand and say, I'll get it done for you, whether it is the biggest IT organization of the company, or if it's a franchisee offering uh, hair spa services. The problem is the same. There's a compulsion on people.
So it's on every level, right? It's like if I am insecure about my job, this person is insecure about the contract that they've
Absolutely.
received from somebody else, or the job that they're
Absolutely.
doing for somebody, some other client, right? So the insecurity is on
Right.
each level. So, sir, then
Right.
somebody like you who hired
Mm-hmm.
me at my
Mm-hmm.
most vulnerable moment, how do you
Mm-hmm.
decide? How did you, as an employer, take that risk?
The point I was trying to explain was, look, since you picked up on this theme of insecurity,
Hmm.
that's to an extent the crux of it. See, a lot of times, the person who's interacting with the external world, let me talk specifics here. Let's say there's a salesperson or a business acquisition expert,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
He's trying to get a deal or broker a deal at any cost. Or let's say someone is trying to fix a problem with a customer or a client. Now, he or she cannot go and say, I look into it, I'll come back. There
Hmm.
is a moral pressure to commit timelines.
Hmm.
And if this person is so insecure, or if this person is not confident of his or her own value proposition,
Hmm.
if he is not willing to have that courageous conversation
Hmm.
and push back and say, hey, I have an entire organization, if he or she is not feeling responsible and mindful about the fact, what am I going to trigger now inside? If he or she is not doing that, then what happens is you do trigger a series of what I call as anxiety, multiplication, and transference. You come back and you jump up and down and say, I don't know what we are going to do. I made a commitment to the customer or the client. Now, the problem, I don't know what to do, is a very dangerous problem or a dangerous statement to make. And this is where the cookie crumbles, right? Because people around him are laughing at this person, him or her. They are laughing at this person and saying, hey, you don't know how you're going to solve this, but you want this entire machinery to gear up for a promise you made. And this happens in many organizations. And this is the root of many angst between departments, functions, sales and operations. Who asked you to commit? Who asked you to promise? Then that person says, you should come in the front line and see.
Hmm.
You don't know how it is. I am trying to protect the organization, the brand, the image. I think these are all not very true. That's why it's a function or a quality of security,
Hmm.
leadership, your
Hmm.
own evaluation of the problem. And now with this, I'll segue into the question that you asked me.
Hmm.
Therefore, why did I make the decision? I'm sure millions of people make these decisions every day. If you believe that you have a plan, you have a strategy, your vision is slightly larger than today's existence or tomorrow's satisfaction, but
Hmm.
slightly beyond that, you tend to think differently.
Hmm.
That's the root of it. If you're not living in a
Instant gratification.
constant
Hmm.
day-to-day instant gratification mode,
Hmm.
you tend to think a little more clearly. When you think clearly, you 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 look at the problem differently, and therefore you believe that you have a few more solutions, and then that reflects in your behavior, in your actions. That's what it is. Uh, I know this may sound as oversimplification, but in reality, that's what it is. So whenever organizations suddenly pick up the first clue of there's a burnout in my team, or people are extending work hours, this is not tenable. There's too much noise around the amount of stress it is creating for individuals or teams.
Hmm.
Then the first thing they need to look for is, hey, what are the variables that I can start looking at? What can I negotiate for everyone in the process?
Hmm.
Not only internally, externally also,
Hmm.
right? If collectively they do that, you'll be surprised at the outcomes.
Hmm.
I've been in situations, I've been in these courageous conversations myself where everyone assumes the worst
Hmm.
out of the enterprise.
Hmm.
So if I say this, the client is going to be upset.
Hmm.
You turn the problem on its head and tell the client, this is the problem. Is it okay? And sometimes everybody is empathetic. The problem is we assume. And I'll tell you examples of this behavior, right? And I call this running inside the train or, standing up inside the aircraft before the gates are open syndrome,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? The most educated people, the best of professionals, right? You flaunt your gadgets, you flaunt your latest version of software, hardware, but your mindware is something that's stuck, right? The aircraft is taxiing, you want to get up and reach out for your boxes. You do this when you get in. You clamor for space. You clamor for the elbows. That's okay. But when the aircraft is still taxiing, someone is telling, sir, baith jaye until the aircraft comes to a complete halt. You don't. You believe that you're saving the world these 3 minutes, your multi-million dollar deal. It could be true, but not every time, all the time for everyone. That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not
Hmm.
belittling anyone who has got a fire or an emergency.
Hmm.
There could be a situation that warrants urgency or, very restless behavior, but it can't be all the time. The point I'm making here is this is a function of a lot of times the leader's personality.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
This is
Hmm.
why I'm a big fan of earlier I started this conversation saying let's break it down into elements.
Hmm.
It's not a syndrome or it's not a symptom. It's a function of how different people at different levels behave.
Hmm.
And what happens is, a lot of times in organization, power and authority, whether you like it or not, is concentrated in the 20% of the people right at the top, one, two, three levels.
Hmm.
And where power and authority is maximum, where the leverage to do things is maximum,
Hmm.
if you're not mindful, if you're not cautious with your behavior,
Hmm.
what you do becomes the culture. What you do sets the tone for everyone else.
Hmm.
What you do becomes our way of working. And that's why I'm saying the stakeholders there on one
Hmm.
side and the people who are impacted by it. You
Hmm.
must be able to develop the courage to articulate the impact of this properly and appropriately
Hmm.
without, on one side, I don't think employees should take a union like behavior and say, I will not work until you fix this.
Hmm.
Similarly, I don't think the leadership at the top should turn a blind eye to the real issues.
Hmm.
That's why this is a very layered problem. And if we
Hmm.
get into the cause and effect of it, somewhere at the root, you'll find behavior contributes to a lot. And if we
Hmm.
start this step by step, behavior by behavior, I think it's very possible to work out great workplaces and great work systems.
Okay.
So do you think it is going to change anytime soon?
It will, and I've always believed anything, Chandan, and I've used this in examples in my sessions as well. people talk about change as if it is a very externally esoteric thing in third person. I challenge everyone to change the television channel in your own houses without getting into a conflict at prime time. Now you will take the easy way out. People take the easy way out and get two, three televisions, or they'll say, I'll watch it on my mobile, you watch it on TV. Those are not solutions. Try and change it. Try and get into a conversation. Two people wanting to watch different things in prime time, right? Change, therefore, is a function of how much do you want it, how willing are you, and do you have the willpower to go through that change process, right? If everything were to happen at one swipe or one click, this world would have been a better place by now, and you and I will be out of jobs because we are not solving problems or we are not talking about problems,
Hmm.
right? This will change. I'm an eternal optimistic, but the way to start it is try not to boil the ocean, right? Try not to tell people and say, hey, look, the world has to wake up and we have to legislate. Look at the problem itself. Why is this a problem? Why is everyone up in arms? Because someone somewhere said, this is how we have to work. And that's not working for us.
Hmm.
Had they said, look, in our context, in our business, for the next 3 months, this team, this particular business unit, is it okay for you to say, give 18 hours, 20 hours, 25 hours? People have done it. People do it. I've seen teams that are very excited about burning the midnight oil because they all look forward to it.
Hmm.
The moment it is mandated, legislated, or the moment it comes down as a policy or a principle, that's when it hurts everyone.
Hmm.
So the way to initiate this change process is make it contextual,
Hmm.
have a reasonable dialogue around it,
Hmm.
uh, tell people why long hours are necessary, and those who are willing will put up their hand. It's
Hmm.
again a personality thing. A lot of people are very excited. It's not a very general thing at all. I
Hmm.
know the people I coach, I work with, I facilitate, train, or help. There are many people who get excited by these long working hours because for them, there is a lot of meaning in work and work related outcomes. And
Hmm.
they're at a life stage where they want to make their first million
Hmm.
and then retire. For some others, the challenges are very different, and
Hmm.
they want 9 to 5, and they don't want to be judged because at 5:01 they're looking at their watch. They don't want to be called, "Arey yaar, what?" I mean, with due respect to the institutions that run this country, they don't want to be called, "This is not a government job,"
Hmm.
right? But both are realities. That's what I'm saying. This is real. That is real.
Hmm.
In fact, you'll be surprised at how many organizations which just because great offices, edifices, and land is available 30 kilometers outside the city create the best infrastructure, but people have to catch a 6 o'clock or a 7 o'clock bus and get back home. They are not judged. But when someone on their own volition says, it's time, I need to shut down my laptop, they are seen as lacking motivation, not having ownership, not having skin in the game. I think these are the dialogues we need to have. Break it
Hmm.
down, break it into the context. Every
Hmm.
leader, every organization, every department, construct this around your realities, negotiate,
Hmm.
and then develop ways of working. It's a very solvable problem.
Hmm. So, from the context of an employee, like it's not always easy starting a dialogue with your superiors. All right.
Right.
How do you suggest how to approach this problem if I have a problem from
Mm.
either working hours or setting up boundaries in terms of how I am working?
I
How
would
do I
like to
start that
add,
conversation?
I would like to add something.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
we were working together in a media organization. I would not like to take names. So there came a point where they made a mandate that you'll only have a 30-minute break in your shift, 8 or 10 hour long shift. And we had to log in,
And log
like
out our
right,
break,
log in and log out our break time.
which was, yeah. So in media, sir, it is said that you have an entry time and don't have an exit time, which
Time.
is which is okay. We were quite excited to take up on that. That is why we chose that industry. But yes, this break thing, especially in media, because it's kind of high voltage performance during the hours. A 30-minute break at that point felt like you're trying to like strangle us
Yeah.
into something. But yeah, that didn't feel quite right. So in that
Yeah.
case, how do you start like a conversation if somebody is telling you 30 minute ka hi break lena hai and you are feeling suffocated? How do you convey that?
Right. See, first, let me give you the short answer. If somebody is feeling suffocated,
Hmm.
if you're feeling choked,
Hmm.
you show signs that you need air.
Hmm.
It's as simple as that. If you're worried, if you're afraid, if you're ashamed, if you're anxious, if you feel uh, you're doing it at the risk of something else, then that's a big no.
Hmm.
A strong word such as someone is feeling choked, you raise your hand and say, I need air.
Hmm.
Now, where you do, how you do is a question of mechanics, and that I'll address later. But the short answer is the moment someone is hurt,
Hmm.
choked, or feeling this is too stressful. I mean, uh, let me be honest in this forum. Soumya, you spoke about what I did to get you on board and things like that. But
Yeah.
there have been instances where my team members also have expressed that, look, sometimes the heat is becoming a little too much. And when
Hmm.
they say that, I think the right thing to do is to listen to them. So let's go step by step here. You used a media house example, right? First, my pointer to all those people who go through such pressure and stresses, is it something that you signed up for, or has this changed suddenly and overnight? These are two different problems.
Hmm.
And let me tell you what is the difference. Um, Today, if you go into any of these airline and ask them for a bottle of water, right? They're not going to give you unless they have time on hand, right? They're very politely likely to tell you that, is it okay if I give you once I finish all my pre-flight checklist formalities, pushback, and all that? That's acceptable, right? They're not promising something and then going back on their contract or a promise.
Hmm.
Similarly, if a certain organization, and this happens in manufacturing as well,
Hmm.
they tell you that this is your lunch time. There
Hmm.
are batches, there are slots. It's 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, there'll be a bell. And I've seen a lot of these uh, innovative contraptions, right? Uh, that's okay because you made a choice, you understood the environment,
Hmm.
and you signed up for it.
Hmm.
The problem is if something has changed, the
Hmm.
first thing you might want to ask it, is it the system or is it a person or a group of people?
Hmm.
If it's a system, you need to therefore approach it as to how do you change the system.
Hmm.
Go through the right channels, go through a friend at workplace, or if there's an HR person, go and talk to the HR person.
Hmm.
Uh, because a lot of times having a courageous conversation is easier said than done in these personality driven workplaces
Hmm.
like media houses or small firms or family owned businesses where uh, big titles but strong personalities, and eventually what the personalities want prevail,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
There, I think the last thing you want to do is have a courageous conversation. So you go through steps. You first articulate the problem and you get it validated with your own friends and peers. You ask them, look, this is how I'm feeling. Is it just me?
Hmm.
Or is it generally across?
Hmm.
Right? Once you have your validation, once you think that the temperature indeed is going up and it's going into the red, you must start making noises. You must start telling the other person or the system or whatever that construct is that it's becoming a little too much for you. And the best way to do this is to talk about how you're feeling.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're triggering a huge defense mechanism into
Hmm.
action.
Hmm.
People will feel the need to defend when they feel they are attacked. It's not just human instinct, it's an animal instinct, it's even a reptilian instinct.
Hmm.
When you are under attack, please defend.
Hmm.
Right? So when you
Hmm.
tell someone you made me feel like this, you asked me to work, you said this, three yous are enough for that person to multiply that tenfold and give it back to you.
Hmm.
Right? So the best way to handle this is to talk about how you feel, what you're going through, what is it doing to you, in a manner where you're trying to be very sensible and sensitive about it to begin with. A lot of times, the
Hmm.
fact that you're talking about it will open the doors for meaningful conversations.
Hmm.
Despite this, if it is not getting addressed,
Hmm.
or a lot of see, there are many things. These are not silver bullets for anything, right?
Right. Right.
Different people react to this differently. Some people will say, promise you, and for the next 2 days, you're treated with kids' gloves. You're given chocolates. You're told, hey, it is 7 o'clock. Why haven't you left? But then the third day, things will return to normalcy. These things happen. Look at it. If it is not fixing the problem for you,
Hmm.
I think you should address it at a system and an institution level, gather a little more support, and talk to people about why it is like this for everyone. Because when you present this as a systemic problem, people are likely to sit up and take notice.
Hmm. And
Because
when you say
then
people, these are the leaders who actually consider changing environments and okay.
whoever it is, the movers and shakers,
Hmm.
whoever has the ability to change this are
Hmm.
likely to notice this when the noise has reached critical levels,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
But then be mindful
Hmm.
about how you do. That's why I said earlier. I said you can't be a that's wrong as well. You can't gather support and you can't become a mutiny.
Yeah.
I mean, you
So the
can't
other
act in
side of
mutiny.
it is quietly quitting, right, sir? The other side, one is becoming a rebel and saying, I won't work till
Right.
this is fixed, and the other is quiet quitting. Correct.
Correct.
So there are two
Correct.
extreme ends to this story.
Correct.
Sir,
And
yeah,
go
go ahead,
ahead.
go ahead, go ahead. That's okay.
No, you're right. Both the extremes don't work, and both the extremes are outliers, and we can't create systems or solutions for outliers generally.
Hmm.
The quitters need help, right? The extremely rebellious people need help in toning down. But I think by and large, if you see a majority of the people, first they need the courage to recognize the issue and say, don't feel morally compelled and say, hey, there's recession. Will I get another job? Should I make a noise? It's March, it's performance time. Everything that I did the entire year will be forgotten. This one thing will stand out. Should I even make this conversation? Should I even be seen as a cribber or someone who's
Hmm.
complaining? I think you should go beyond this. That's why I'm saying focus on your value,
Hmm. What is
right?
the value that
If
you are
you're
adding to the entire system? एंड सो
absolutely
सर इस पूरी कॉन्वर्सेशन तो इससे एक ओवरऑल सिस्टम अपग्रेड हो रहा है जिसमें मैं अपनी वैल्यू देख रही हूँ कि मैं क्या प्रोवाइड कर रही हूँ सो
right,
बिफोर सेइंग दैट आई विल ऑल्सो चेक कि मैं कितना वैल्यू इसको प्रोवाइड कर रही हूँ कि ये मुझे
exactly.
उतना ही वैल्यू दे तो आई विल
How
ऑल्सो अपग्रेड माई सेल्फ फॉर द कंपनी टू अपग्रेड देयर
Uh,
वैल्यूज फॉर मी राइट
Absolutely. See, that's why, sorry if I kind of disappointed you and anyone else in the initial response to the whole 90-hour or 72-hour work problem. I think this problem has a lot of shades to it. And unless we address
इट
the
इज
shades, we'll not be addressing the problem. On value, what happens is ultimately or eventually that's what it'll come down to. What will people say when I'm going with 10 people and holding a placard and say not possible and everything? Finally, when my manager calls me into the room and says, look, fine, then you make up your mind. Suddenly, I'm put in a position where I'm having to think, "Arey, ye maine kya kar diya? What have I done? What am I going to do? I don't have a job on hand." And then I'm okay. No, no, no. That was not my intention. This is not what I said. I just wanted to bring this point. बस आप जो कहते हैं आप भगवान हो, all this doesn't work. That's why I'm saying your own security. If you're confident that you're adding value, then you can go up and speak. But that doesn't mean if you're not adding value, you can take up anything. I'm saying two different things here. If things have suddenly changed at your workplace, if the temperature is not acceptable, please tell everyone possible that it's not acceptable in a very professional manner. There are ways and means to do this, and we all know this. If you're unable to do this on your own, do this on your own, seek help. But then, if you're operating out of the fear of being dispensable, if I make a noise, I will be replaced. Then the value proposition comes reflect. How do you construct this? Right? But nothing is a justification to suffer high heat and silence. And the way to do this is look at I don't want to use the word challenge. I want people to reflect. Everyone who's talking about long hours, productive hours, to reflect this. I want to put all these people in one aircraft, right? And tell them, you know what? Your pilot is following your long hour principle. They've driven for 20 hours or they've flown for 20 hours now. This is their last leg of another 4 hours. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight. I want to tell them that if they are getting under the knife of a surgeon or a healthcare assistant, your doctor has done 8 surgeries on the row. This is their 18th hour and the 18th surgery for the day. Sit back, relax, cross your fingers, and I'll see you on the other side. Right? I want their personal drivers to make this statement. Good morning, sir. I have not slept the entire night for 2 nights in a row. I am here. चलिए मैं आपको पहुंचाता हूँ डेस्टिनेशन बैठिए स्ट्रैप इन एंजॉय द राइड देन आई थिंक एवरीवन विल क्लैमर एंड से नहीं नहीं नो भैया चाय पी लो
हो
खाना
जाओ
खाया अपने यहाँ सो जाओ रेस्ट ले लो यू आर ड्राइविंग विद यंगस्टर्स इन्फेंट्स एंड फैमिली ऐसा नहीं करना है प्लीज देन व्हाट हैपन I think I mean, I'm not offending anyone. I'm saying all these people who are saying this are well meaning. They're talking about building nations, building economies, but it doesn't get built that way. The reality is human factor, human behavior has limitations. We all know this. The moment we try to engineer around these limitations, people are going to be unhappy, burnt out. That's a reality you cannot run away from,
Hmm.
right? Uh, you can change to electric cars, you solve one problem,
Hmm.
but your EVs are going to require charging.
Hmm.
That's a
Correct.
solution you're willing to build. Then your human beings are going to require charging. And if you're going to turn a blind eye to that, that's a bit of a hypocrisy at the highest level. But I'm sure people are not saying that. That's why break it down,
Yeah,
look at it into
contextually.
contextually, it will work out.
तो सर जब पहली नौकरी जो मैंने की
Mm-hmm,
मैंने लगभग लगभग 6 नौकरियां की हैं, 6-7 नौकरियां की है,
mm-hmm,
जिसमें लार्जली मेरे ज्यादातर फीमेल बॉसेस रही हैं, ठीक है, बट आई हैव हैड मेल बॉसेस एज वेल. सो
mm-hmm,
जब मैंने अपनी दूसरी नौकरी छोड़ी थी, इट वाज नॉट अ वेरी प्लेजेंट सेपरेशन.
mm-hmm,
There was a lot of mental health conversation that happened before I left it and all that. So it was a female boss, and somebody said this phrase to me that people don't quit roles and companies; they quit bosses. Okay,
mm-hmm,
and you'd one would think that a female boss would rather be more empathetic towards the challenges of a female employee, uh, but that hasn't been the case with my personal experience and Chandan's personal
I as
experience so
well.
far. All right. So, sir, how does one address the challenge of a toxic box? Toxic is a very, very strong word, and I don't know how to first of all define it, but I can spot one once I am put under them. But now that I have about 8-10 years of experience, but can you tell us how to deal with this situation where you're working under a I'm not trying to, ऐसे मैं जेंडर डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं करना चाह रही हूँ मगर ऐसा हमने लार्जली एक्सपीरियंस किया है. You've worked with so many organizations, and I'm sure you've had your own data where you've seen what kind of managers are dealing situations how. What's your take on this? How to deal with difficult bosses here?
Interesting. Um, there are two aspects to this. One is
Hmm.
the person who's at the receiving end, for want of a better word,
Hmm.
dealing with this boss, toxic boss. Then there is what can the system do about it? Okay,
Hmm.
usually, the world is a very self-correcting world, and things have their own way of
Playing out.
self-regulating and all
Hmm.
that. If there is toxicity, there'll be a lot of symptoms.
Hmm.
Okay, and there is it's just not one person. It's usually a set of people who tend to notice these things.
Hmm.
The thumb rule is you have to be very careful about what you're defining as toxicity. That's
Hmm.
a responsibility on the person as well,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I'm saying this with a lot of care and caution here,
Hmm.
lest I be misunderstood, lest I'm misunderstood rather, because these days I'm involved in a lot of well-being conversations where people come and say, "My boss is very toxic." I said, "Why?" "I had a very tough day today." "Why?" "He gave a lot of performance feedback and therefore he's toxic." We need to be able to separate this.
Hmm.
Right? A lot of it hinges on fact because see, labeling someone as toxic is also a very sensible and sensitive thing. One has to be very responsible.
Exactly. So
So,
when I
mm,
said toxic was, sir, I'm sorry, I'm breaking you,
mm, mm,
cutting your
mm,
conversation here.
mm,
Uh, every call that this boss had with me was above 100 decibel.
mm,
Every work that was given to me was at that voice level, telling me after 6-8 years of doing the very same thing that I was doing for her, telling me you don't know anything, and you should actually go back to college, and this not like this, in a very bad, using abusive words, in a very high decibel. So that is where I drew the line of toxicity, because every call that I
mm,
used to keep down, I used to feel extremely anxious to even begin the work.
mm,
That
mm,
was what where I drew the line of toxicity.
Hmm.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. Those examples, see, it's it's not okay anywhere for these kind of conversations, but sometimes they tend to
Hmm.
happen. One of the first things I'm just reflecting, I'm slowing down because something like this happened to me as well with my own
Hmm.
colleagues and friends and family recently. And I think nobody is beyond reproach. Nobody is absolutely perfect, and these things happen. It's how you respond to it. So coming back to your question, it's a no-brainer. You don't have to suffer toxicity, right? But why do some people do? The thing is, it's not as black and white as this.
Hmm.
It's not like I don't like the seat in this bus or the AC in this bus, so I'll switch off. It's not like getting down an Uber and taking another Uber, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Things mean a lot to people. Organizations have a context, meaning, and purpose,
Hmm.
right? We can't reduce this to a simple problem of there's a huge power differential and therefore there's helplessness. It's not like that. There are many shades to this. For example, there could be someone whose peer is very toxic.
Hmm.
And then everyone will go to him and advise him and say, then him or her, and say, why are you putting up with this? Either make a noise or get out. There could be so much at stake. This person could be at the end of a 8 month long project where he or she has poured in their heart and soul. So getting out is not an option,
Hmm.
right? Take the media example. We are doing a production and we are now about to release it or see
Roll
the
it off. Hmm.
fruit of our labor. And suddenly, just because someone is toxic, I can't reduce my life to two choices: either deal with it or get out of the toxicity. I
Hmm.
want to either deal with it or solve it.
Hmm.
I think we need to approach this problem like that.
Hmm.
What is at stake?
Hmm.
What do you want from this?
Hmm.
Because a lot of times people make the mistake of I want the other person to completely solve this person's behavior and I want a great fairy tale ending for myself. And
Hmm.
that's where the problem begins,
Hmm.
right? A lot of these things call for a little bit of sacrifices, understanding, willingness to go through the process of problem solving. That's painful.
Hmm.
If you don't want to go through the process of problem solving,
Hmm.
a lot of times these things don't end well,
So, sir, can
right?
you just take us quickly
I'll give you
through
an
a process?
yeah,
Yeah, example. Hmm.
yeah. So first thing is you need to separate it out and see, is it very personal? Is it just for you that this person, if there's something personal in it,
Hmm.
that you don't have to put up with. Go to the person or go to HR if there is HR or go to someone else or document, write, make a noise without fear of losing your job or without fear of retribution. You should be able to say that this is getting too personal and this is not okay.
Hmm.
People are known to do this. They do this in their relationships. They do this in families. They do this in other arrangements. So they should
Hmm.
be willing to do this at workplaces,
Hmm.
right? If you're not willing to do this, you run the risk of being asked, why were you quiet all these days? And that's a very uncomfortable question.
Hmm.
That's why you should be willing to
अभी
do
तक
this. The
क्यों नहीं
moment,
बोला? Hmm.
exactly. So the moment it's becoming toxic, you have to say, boss, this is not acceptable. If it's personal, if it's not personal, if it's the system, the policy, the ways of working, the engagement, the conversations, then
Sir, can you give
then
an example what it means if it's personal? How does a person understand? What does it mean?
see, you'll pick this, right? People have come to me and said, look, the same issue, the same proposition, if it is from me or for me or by me, the treatment is different.
Hmm.
If it is for someone else, the treatment is different. Then it's
Hmm.
personal.
Okay.
For example, if I say I can't come this weekend,
Hmm. Hmm.
then I get yelled at.
Hmm.
If someone else says I can't come this weekend, then this person is told very nicely, hey, why don't you connect? Can we do this at least
Hmm.
on the
Hmm.
fly? Can you just log in for 15 minutes?
Hmm.
That to me is very personal and that's discriminatory. And you should be able to pick this
Hmm.
without assuming. That's why I'm saying seek validation. Talk about this first to your colleagues, peers, friends at work, and see
Hmm.
if they are seeing what you're seeing. Be objective about it.
Hmm.
If there are signs of it being extremely personal, make a noise.
Hmm.
This इसको बस बिल्कुल नहीं सहना है. There's no two ways about this,
Hmm.
right?
No,
Go and say, yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
continue, continue, continue.
But if it's more systemic, for example, it's not personal, it's not about you, but still it's toxic. It's
Hmm.
unreasonable demands. It's unacceptable behavior, public, private behavior, demands, late night calls, and say, I have a presentation. If I have to do it at 9 in the morning, I need to have it by 7, which means you need to send me at 12 in the night. Can I check it at 9:30 in the night? Those are It's not about you. You know that, and he or she is doing it with everyone practically.
Hmm.
Then the way to address is go back and address your ways of working. You need to go to HR or you need to go to this person, and it's not about that person either.
It's about the
You need to
system.
have you need to have a conversation about, hey, can we put down cultural markers? Can
Hmm.
we accept and agree on how we will work,
Hmm.
which I call as ways of working? Can we define the rules of engagement
Hmm.
and tell very clearly, boss, if this is beyond this time,
Hmm.
then my saying no is not a no to you or the proposition. It's a genuine no. I can't.
Hmm.
And we should be willing to respect that. I think those are mature conversations.
Hmm.
That's why I'm differentiating the two. And you should be able to draw people into those conversations. If people
Hmm.
are not willing to come into those conversations, if they say, यहाँ पे ऐसे ही होता है, take it or leave it, we can't change this for you, then that's a toxic environment that you should really get out. And I don't think anyone can pay you enough to go through that.
Hmm. Go ahead, Chata. You were asking
Yeah.
something.
So I wanted to ask you this. So we were talking about women bosses, the
Hmm.
experiences we had with women
Ah,
bosses.
yeah.
I want to know, like I've heard this, I've read this a lot. Like there's a lot at stake. They have to prove that they are at a certain position. They have to prove why they are there.
Mhm.
Do you think it still exists, this thing of proving, like, it's not because of my gender that I have got a raise or I am at a very senior position? Because it's still happening. We
Hmm.
listen, we hear things like, if you have a female boss, she's not going to be kind to you, or she's very harsh. Do you think it is because of the gender discrimination that she has faced in the past?
Um, to be super honest, I think the reality is this is there across genders. Okay. Again, this is a function of personality, that person's life stage, what drives and motivates that person. Because I've seen very empathetic male leaders and managers, and very aggressive female leaders and managers, and vice versa. I don't think we have data and evidence to prove beyond doubt that this is true with gender. I think it's to do with lifestyle. See, let's step back and see, why do people behave or act in a certain manner. Eventually it's a function of what they want, what their needs are, what drives them, what their motivations are, right? And that's why I'm saying, in in an organization where a lot of culture, policy, ways of working and everything is defined by individuals, it becomes personality driven, and hence it becomes a function of the personality of that person.
Hmm.
I While I have been in a lot of these situations, I am not willing to ascribe it to any gender yet. I will see this as a function of what that person is driven by, motivated by. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying this because I want to play it safe, because I've seen evidence to the contrary and evidence to support in both the cases.
Hmm.
To repeat, very empathetic male managers and leaders, and very aggressive female managers and leaders. So I would blame it on their needs and desires and motivation to get things done. And see, these things are very contagious and infectious, right? If you're very aggressive, you want something very badly, you tend to make that a culture and replicate it, and you want to drive that around everyone in you. For
Hmm.
example, if there is a certain value you put on timeliness,
Hmm.
every second counts, right? Then you want to create a culture where every second counts.
Hmm.
If you're a person who values, look, chill, have fun in life, don't get so serious, don't
Hmm.
get stuck in the process,
Hmm.
it's the journey and not the destination, you tend to create that. That's why I'm saying it's a function of how mature and evolved the organization is, how much power and control the individual has to impact the entire organization or the setup.
तो सर ये टॉप डाउन अप्रोच है, राइट? कि ऊपर वाला जो है वो उसने क्या एनविजन किया है अपनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए, एंड देन दैट्स व्हाट डिसाइड्स द एंटायर.
Correct.
Okay. तो सर जैसे a lot of companies are moving from hours logged to the output based outcome based systems, right? So
Hmm.
how can एम्प्लॉयज हु आर बेसिकली, ये जो प्रेजेंटिज्म होता है ना कि अगर 5 बजे मैं चली जा रही हूँ तो अच्छा, यू आर लिविंग ऑलरेडी जस्ट बिकॉज समबडी
Hmm.
एल्स स्टेज बैक 2 आवर्स बैठ गए हैं एंड दिखा रहे हैं कि मैं हूं ऑफिस में. वो दिस इज लाइक अ मैसिव मैसिव I mean, the between the people who are productive and the ones who show that they are productive. All right, ऐसे बैठ के, क्योंकि नजरों के सामने जो ज्यादा दिख रहा है, बॉस को लग रहा है वो ज्यादा काम कर रहा है क्योंकि उसने ज्यादा देर लॉग किया है, राइट? तो इसका सर, व्हाट इज लाइक the solution for the ones who complete their work on time and leave and still are looked at as, not giving enough, the in the
Looking at the clock, just
yeah,
waiting for that
time to come, yeah.
shift to end.
Right, right. No, look, that's a very essential conversation. I think you must walk up to whoever it is and tell them that, look, I believe that I've done a fair day's work, right? And these are my values. I don't want to be present for the sake of being present. At the same time, I don't think the number of hours spent or physical presence is an accurate indicator of productivity. I think these are conversations we must have. See, a lot of times you're absolutely right. This happens. Uh, and it starts putting pressure. The moment someone is praised for spending long hours, it puts pressure on everyone else, saying that, hey, look, maybe that's the right behavior. And the weaker personalities and the not very assertive people will then start panicking and say, hey, if I don't do this, then I will not be evaluated as a good performer, right? So I think which is why in a good system culturally, people must have the willingness and ability to listen, look, listen, and feel everyone's perceptions on this. I mean, these days, any good HR function does this, right? They look at pulse, they look at health, they look at morale, motivation, index. But despite this, if someone is feeling this, the only real solution, everything else we can talk about it for hours, but the real solution is to go up to your immediate manager, the one who controls your destiny, right? So to speak, at work, and express that you don't want to be misunderstood just because you're leaving on time. Are we good on this? Are we okay? Or are you the kind of person who's going to brand me as being, low on ownership or low on responsibility? Is it okay? Are we good? And that's a very, very important conversation, especially if others around are, spending longer hours for whatever reason, right? That's absolutely, it's like establishing a working rhythm, right? It's that little conversation. Are we good? Will you misunderstand me? Is it okay? Because for me, it's very important. This is my circumstance, right? It's nothing to do with work or productivity. It's just about delivering what I have to deliver and leaving at my convenient time. That's the only solution that works. If you are convincing your manager, or not even convinced, if you are communicating to your manager that this is what you think about it, and then there'll be a dialogue around it. People say, no, no, it can't be right. Look, uh, we are not a 9 to 5 job. There is, I'm sure, enough. Why can't you do today what you can do tomorrow? Why can't you be proactive? Finish a little bit of tomorrow's work today, and then you can talk about why you can't do that. Right? Yeah.
सो सर, ये जैसे ये इसका एक लार्जर कॉन्वर्सेशन है कि इस प्रॉब्लम को जड़ से कैसे हटा सकते हैं इज बाय एक्चुअली चेंजिंग द ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस वर्किंग style, right? Which is where you come in place and leverage comes in the scenario, correct? So if you had to approach this problem from leverage's point of view, where if an organization employees at the lower level are going through such an issue, where would you start? And this will call for the next conversation that we're going to have with you.
Right.
How will you take on it at an organization level?
See, I mean, you practically said it in the way you framed the question. It has to be dealt with at an organization level. Therefore, I go back to the point I made earlier. Go to the movers and shakers. Go to the people with power and authority. First, talk to them and see what their concerns are. Why is someone wanting these things? See, sometimes these things are just quirks and personal insecurities. Sometimes these are things that someone has learned somewhere and they want to mimic. And there's also a lot of pressure on them, let me tell you, to go and talk around in uh, different places about what kind of an organization they run. For some people, it's fashionable to say, I run a tight ship, I run a productive ship, I run a very happy ship, right? So it's all about that. There's a lot of pressure on them also. So try and understand. It boils down to what's your vision? What do you want to build? What are you trying to accomplish? help them uncover their blind spots. A lot of
Hmm.
times, these people believe that they want something and there's only one or two ways to get there. So if you're able to help them realize that, look, productivity has different definitions, right? If you're very agile, if you're willing to be a little flexible, maybe you will get what you want
Hmm.
as long as you're not fixated on how you want it,
Hmm.
right? So we help them uncover these little blind spots and ask them to have culture conversations and say, look, do you really want the solution,
Hmm.
or are you focused on how you get there?
Hmm.
So it's a combination of giving them both the view of the forest and the trees,
Hmm.
like a helicopter, right?
Hmm.
Go up and see and then come down and see and help them see these little things. And if someone gives them the comfort, look, I assure you, nothing will happen. The
Hmm.
cookie won't crumble.
Hmm.
This ship is not going to drown. It's okay to change this policy, tweak this.
Hmm.
I call this the black cat syndrome, which I'll explain some other day, but it's okay to make these changes
Hmm.
because yes, we are living in a world of technology, AI, everything.
Hmm.
But fundamentally, human enterprise and human capability has certain limitations. People do best when they are fundamentally okay with what is happening to them and their lives. We may not solve problems in their personal lives, but can we be places that doesn't add to their problems?
Hmm. Hmm.
That if we are able to do, and that willingness to say, hey, okay, fine, great, I hear you. I'm willing to change my approach as long as I'm getting my. Nobody's asking
This,
you to
yeah,
go
yeah.
easy on your profitability. Mat kato aap.
Hmm.
Don't change anything. But if you
Just
change
change the
little
way
things
you are
here and
approaching
there,
it. Yeah, yeah. The little
little
things.
things, and that's where we come. Because
I
see,
remember you saying it's not the what, it's the how you do it. Right.
We get stuck in the what.
So, sir, you are a strategy, business, and a leadership, development professional. A company, a CEO hires you to come and fix a lot of things. But, sir, these
Mhm.
guys are like really big level people with high stakes, and they've achieved like massive things in their life. How do they receive the feedback that you give to them? What is the reception like? Because मुझे नहीं लगता है बहुत इजीली एक्सेप्टिंग या वेलकमिंग होते होंगे ये फीडबैक्स कैसे होता है सर ये when you're advising a CEO or a CFO or a let that level of a person to bring about the changes.
So the first thing is I don't think we use very strong words like prescription, advice, and all because
Yeah.
that's a sure way to not be liked at all, right?
Okay.
So we don't teach, we don't coach. We say we'll have meaningful, mature, adult, professional conversations.
Okay.
That's a very safe space to operate in, right? Because if I tell you, can I come tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock to your house and advise you on how to run your house, you're going to kick me. But if I tell you, look, tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock, can we speak about a few things, right? I think it's that, and it's true also. See, I'll not blame them as well. See, for anybody to advise or fix, see, if you want to move the earth, where do you stand? You need to stand outside the earth to move the earth, right? As someone famously said, I don't remember who, I vaguely remember someone said, I think I'll move the earth on its axis. Just give me a place to stand and give me a lever long enough. Give me leverage and I'll change the earth. Which means a lot of times you can't be within the frame and change the picture. You can't be within the system and solve it. I don't blame them. Everyone needs comfort that will not end up doing more damage than what is already. So if you go to them and very authentically tell them what the real issues are.
Hmm.
Don't see it as work or don't clamor for a contract, but honestly tell them, look, these are problems. Some of these you have to fix.
Sir, your audio is gone.
Your audio is
Sorry,
good.
but no, I'm saying some of these, this is exactly what I do. I tell them these are problems. Some of these you fix. It was not an audio issue. It is, see,
Oh,
immediately you thought it was an audio issue, right?
yeah. So, sir, before we like wrap up this part of our conversation, there's this interesting statistics by Tinder. There was a report that said that 63% of young professionals on this dating app listed that they have no time for relationships.
अब
Hmm.
What do you
सुना
have to say about it? Like, 90-hour work shift, 70-hour login karo, or
मिलेंगे कब लोगों से रिलेशनशिप होगी कब शादी कैसे होगी बच्चे कैसे होंगे
और
और
सर एक और
प्लस
चीज
और
भी,
काम पे डेट नहीं करेंगे पूरे टाइम, जब काम पे हैं तो फिर किससे शादी करेंगे, कहाँ मिलेंगे लोगों से? जस्ट ऑन अ लाइट नोट सर, डोंट डोंट टेक इट वेरी सीरियसली.
No, for me, I have to take it at the lightest possible note because A, I know nothing about Tinder, and I hope my wife is listening.
okay, let's
Okay,
say not on Tinder, but
Mostly,
after
I get that.
generally, also people are saying we don't have any time for relationships. All this drama, situationship is the new word, you know.
relationship bhi chodo, if they are married, then the couple is like, we don't have time to have kids.
Yeah.
No, I honestly don't have an opinion on this because I don't know enough about this. But I think this this problem is wrongly. Here I would come to the rescue of all the corporate leaders and organizations. They have nothing to do with this because even the most productive 12-hour, 18-hour, 70-hour, 90-hour work life person, someone's committed to so many hours, is always married to this at least. People have found very interesting ways to, they know exactly when to switch off their Zoom screens and quietly steal a text or look at their Insta reels, and they're so connected. So it's a different problem, is what I think. Not having time is not an organizational problem. It's, I think, their own issue about that's a different discussion. How can
Mm.
someone be so connected yet complain about not having anyone really and meaningfully in their lives?
Mm.
Right? This whole urgency, for example, after this call, how can someone go run and say, you know what, I did a wonderful podcast and they want 1,000 people to see it,
Mm.
but they don't have 2 minutes for someone who wants to talk about it. This is a different problem altogether. But yes, the organizational responsibility in this is if your timesheets are pointing that someone is practically spending their life in the office, you must get them help. But that's an entirely different domain and requires a separate
Yeah.
convention, which I am not willing to venture into without upsetting many people. So let me prime myself and prepare and then talk about
Thank you, Vasu sir. Thank you for your valuable time. I know you log your time very efficiently. So thank you for giving us this period. And guys, there is another conversation just waiting to happen with Vasu sir, which is largely for high level employees, executives, C-suite executives, and leaders of companies. Um, it will be available on Mother of Podcasts, all the channels, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So see you in that conversation. And thank you for this valuable ऐसे छोटे छोटे tips. I would really like entire summing up the conversation that we had with you is see problems with context, have an open dialogue, courageous dialogue, be willing to go through the process of change. And communication, I feel, goes a long way, is what you want to say. Right?
This is the mother of podcasts. This podcast is available on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook.